Hi, I'm Ephraim Elliott, and you've just been placed on alert. Welcome to the Elliott Alert. My guest today is Reverend Johnny Smith. He is the director of the AC Gentlemen's Club Social Organization. Welcome, Reverend Smith. How are you, sir?
All right, thank you, Mr. Elliott, for having me with you.
Good, good. Now, Reverend Smith, I know you put together a couple years ago a big project. It was called the 10K Black Man Summit, Change from Within. This right here. Can you tell me a little bit about it and how that and the Gentlemen's Club came together?
Yes, sir. We had a summit, a conference, a two-day conference in 2010, I think April of 2010, in which we had the men from our community across the state, men from across the state, every profession, from every sphere, to address us regarding the issues and dissensions that was in African American community as relates to the male and to the black man.
So you're saying that the summit addressed specifically the issues that young men, young African American men, are going through in their community?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We tried to get every profession, education, law enforcement, judicial system, other educators, etc., to give us insight on what they needed from us within the community leaders and pastors, and etc., to address the issues more effectively. And as a result of that conference, one of the issues that were addressed by the educators administrators, was a presence among our men, boys particularly, and to be more, have more mentorship and visibility, sometimes in campuses, etc., to be more impactful. And so as a result of that, we then organized the Gentlemen's Club in public schools. And so we started out at some of our elementary schools and junior high schools. In the last 2-3 years, we have increased schools almost each year. And we have an opportunity to meet with the young men during their lunch breaks and during certain periods and times, maybe designated by the principals.
Now, the educators in our schools, they see a need for a presence for our young men and our African American young men, so that the older men are able to help and mentor them, and they think that can be effective?
Yes, sir, it has. We've been allowed to address some issues with our boys, with our young men on campuses. We talk about appearances and maturity and disciplines and etc. And the presence of a man makes a difference with a boy.
Yeah.
And so our presence sometimes will get them to be more attentive, more respectful, more responsive.
Right.
In some of their decisions makings and situations. So.
Because a lot of our schools have a high volume of African American women, and there are not a lot of African American men on campus. So by having a certain quantity of African American men, professional men, leaders, and other people who they can look up to, the ones who don't have a father or the ones who don't have that role model will be able to look and see at those men and say, okay, I can do that. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. One of the goals is to embed in them the decency, the discipline, the respect of being a man. We address the process of becoming a man, trying to instill in them that we were born male so we could go through the stages of boyhood to become a man. And so one of our proclamations, if you will, is that men are not born, they are made.
They are made.
And so,
well, now you just said something very key. You said men are not born, they're made. How, from a young men's perspective, if they don't have that male influence, if they don't have that mentorship, if they don't see something in someone else who they can mimic, how can they really become a real man? What are your thoughts about that?
I think that that there are some situations in which they may not respond to with the best potential, with the best possibilities. One of the things that we discovered is that because there is an absence of the male, and you know that most of our households now are headed by many of our women,
right.
Our behavior is learned behavior. And so if there's not a man that's there, then the behavior that the young boy tends to take on during those foundational years are basically the behaviors of his mother or of the female. So he doesn't really understand the attributes and characteristics of men and of males, how men respond, how men actually conduct themselves. So there are certain things, postures and other things that are relative to male and men that are different between female and women. So we want them to concentrate on practicing those attributes, because we tell them eventually you have been born to become a man.
Right.
You haven't been born to be 15.
Right.
Or 16.
Or
16. You were born to go through those stages to become a man. And so those are some of the approaches that we have so that they can then take on the understanding. You remember when you and I were being raised, and we had in our schools, and I think it's kind of absent now, there used to be this little proverb or rhyme that said, what a boy's made of.
Right.
You know,
puppy dog tails.
Eggs and snails and puppy dog tails. And what little girls made of sugar and spice and everything nice. So there was some differentiations into how we respond, what we engage in, the activities, so that we could basically distinguish male, female, man, woman. And we're basically losing that when our boys are not actually impacted with the presence of a man constantly imputing in him those attributes, characteristics, and insights.
Well, I'm glad you said that, and we have to go on a break, but when we come back, I want to expound on that just a little bit more. We'll be right back.
A full life, measured in seats, starts with the right ones early on. Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Learn how to prevent deaths and injuries by using the right car seat for your child's age and size.
They say that when you're facing extreme danger, your life flashes before you. If you think that's sad, consider facing it before you even have enough life to flash before your eyes. Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Deaths and injuries can be prevented by using the right car seat. Visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat to know what is appropriate for each age and size.
Welcome back to the Elliott Alert. My guest again today is Reverend Johnny Smith. He is the director of the Arkansas Gentlemen's Club Social Club organization. This is a wonderful organization right here. Reverend Smith, when we left, you were talking about the transition from boyhood to men and how mentorship is so important in reference to that. What we kind of didn't cover is, you know, we take our hats off to those young ladies who are raising these young men, because I mean that's a hard job to be a single parent, work, go to school, do all those things in raising a young man. But that also means as community leaders, as you know, pastors, as other people in the community, we have to step up and help them, because I'm sure they understand and we understand that it takes a village to raise a child.
Yes.
And I think the organization, in reference what you're talking about, is you guys are a kind of like a conduit to bridge the gap. You know, when those parents or when that mom is having some difficulties with that young man, and she's like, "What are you doing? What are you going? You know, what's on your train of thought?" You know, as men, we understand that process, right. And that's actually kind of what you guys are doing, coaching them or trying to coach them through it. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. We want to have a stronger presence, particularly understanding our obligation as men in the community.
Now, when you say obligation, expound on that, because see, some men may feel as though I don't have no obligation as long as I raise my child. I don't have no obligation, but you really do have an obligation.
Yeah, it is the responsibility of men, and we teach our boys emphatically. It is our responsibility as men to provide and protect the women and children, to provide for and protect the women and children. I kind of use a scenario that usually if our women are on the side of the highway stranded, and there's a flat tire, they won't call their daughters or sisters.
Right.
If they have sons, husbands, brothers, they will call them. So we become those personalities that are responsible for ensuring that they're safe. If there's a wild animal in the area and a man is present, the children should be protected. He should put himself in harm's way to make sure that the child is protected. So it is our responsibility to provide for and to protect the women and children, and particularly, and you will note that it is not in our history and heritage that many women have to raise sons, many sons, but there were men in the community who knew the circumstance and situation, so they would garner the boys and fish with him, hunt with him, to have him chop wood and do the hauling and the things that needed to be done to ensure that he grasped the responsibility of manhood as well. So we are obligated to our community as men to ensure that the community is safe, that it's orderly, that we live in as much peace and harmony as possible, ensuring that we've done our job. So yeah, all of us are obligated. We're not just restricted to our immediate responsibility and family, but we have obligation to humanity as well.
And believe it, people can believe it or not, but when we don't do that, it affects our surroundings as well. Because our kids commingle with other kids. And if somebody is saying, okay, I'm just gonna raise my son, I'm just gonna take time out with him, he's gotta go back to school with other kids who may not have that situation. And kids influence children. So as a man, whether you're African American or not, we have an obligation to help our community and our young men, because it's going to affect us one way or another. Either we jump in the beginning and help them, or we pay for it through the prison system. And the way it's going now, we have a lot of our young men in the prison system. And we got to think outside the box on trying to come up with creative ways of catching them early and helping them. And I think this program does that. it sets a presence for our young men and lets them know that, look, there's somebody out here who cares about you, somebody out here who's going to teach you the right way. And if you don't learn the right way and you do it the wrong way, then you're not going to have a chance. But if somebody teaches you the right way and you know the right way, then you're held accountable. Is that correct?
Yes, it is, and we're blessed to have many men in this community respond respectfully and urgently to this request and call and involve men in our police department, law enforcement, who help mentor. There are times that we take boys on outings and trips, and they go as chaperones. At times when I may not be able to make it to a particular school, that we have a list of mentors and men who will go and have sessions with the boys and et cetera. So it is beginning to get more momentum, and the inclusion of men from various areas to understand that we must do something, as you said, at the appropriate stages.
Right.
What I've learned through one of my mentors here, that there are various stages that our boys go through, and the foundational years, the most important years of laying the foundation for them and getting them to various stages, understanding that various stages of your life necessitate various levels of maturity.
Right. Especially with young men.
Yeah, young men. So when you get you get 15, then you should be conducting yourself with another level of maturity than before. So being able to instill that in them, have others instill them in it, has really been effective. We've been allowed to address the issues of appearance, of dress.
Yes.
And so occasionally, some of the administrators at the schools have allowed us to have a dress day, a gentleman's club dress day, so the boys can dress in ties and shirts and slacks to try to eliminate this concept of sagging, slouchy, thuggish kind of dress and appearance, because of the impression and the messages that's sent to as it relates to our appearance, how it impacts us psychologically and emotionally. And so those issues are imperative. So when they see men in uniforms and neat, it really makes a statement to them. And I use the concept to them that more than 90% of all communication is nonverbal.
Yeah.
So you get messages.
You get messages
from communication.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that, because that really needs to be addressed. Now we're going to go on break again, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about appearance for our young men.
All right.
We'll be right back.
Did you know kids who play outdoors have healthier lungs?
Totally.
I did. Did you know that boys that play with dolls make better husbands?
My son has lots of dolls. But did you know terry cloth diapers breathe better?
I did.
It's totally true.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know that strollers have the right of way on the sidewalk?
Yes.
Yep, I did. Did you guys
Did you know that kids who eat breakfast have higher GPAs?
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Yeah. That's actually what I was going to say.
Did you know babies should never touch silver? It's really bad for them.
I knew that.
Did you guys know that statistically friendly kids have more friends?
Yeah.
That's obvious.
Did you know most people think they're using the right car seat for their kid, but they're not?
Parents who really know it all know for sure that their child is in the right seat at the right age and size. Visit safercar.gov/the-right seat to make sure your child is protected.
I'm putting that on my blog.
I just put it in mine.
NFC, AFC, offensive linemen, defensive tackles, quarterbacks, and cornerbacks are all working with United Way for a million little reasons. The kids of our communities, to ensure their academic success all the way to graduation day. You see, it takes about 12 years to create a graduate, but it takes the same time to create a dropout. And the difference between a kid becoming one or the other could be a professional athlete, or it could be you. Studies showed the earlier we get to kids, the better their chances. So become a United Way volunteer reader, tutor, or mentor, and make a difference in the life of a child, for the life of that child.
Give.
Advocate.
Volunteer.
Live united. Join your favorite NFL players. Take the pledge. Go to unitedway.org.
Welcome back to the Elliott Alert. My guest again today is Reverend Johnny Smith, and he's with the Gentlemen's Club, Social Club organization, a club that's out here with Jefferson County and other areas trying to mentor and help our young men make that transitional stage. And before we left, Reverend Smith, you were talking about appearances with our young men, because now you see a trend of young high school students with tattoos, pants sagging, hair and all kind of dreads and stuff like that. You know, I don't too much have a problem with haircuts, but as long as it's neat and respectable, the message, you know, that a lot of people get is when their pants are saggy, tattoos everywhere. I mean, what happens when you get 21, 22, 23? You know, what happens when you go into that job and you got stuff tattooed on your neck or teardrops on your eyes, and you may be very qualified for that position. But, you know, as a business owner, are you going to want somebody to sell cars or tires or be the lead person of your organization with teardrop tattooed on their eyes or tattoos on their forehead or on their neck? I mean, is that something that's being addressed as well?
Yes, we are basically, again, trying to emphasize that appearance is initial communication. That some circumstances and situations, we respond in instinct. We really don't really have time to think. And I use this analogy with the boys. If a snake crawled in this room, we would either kill it or we would retreat.
Right. You're not going to ask what kind of snake it is, right?
We do not have time to try to figure out whether it's been deveined,
right?
Whether it's somebody's pet,
right?
It's harmless. It's the instinct will initially take over. We'll leave or we will kill it, and so the appearance initially gives us a inclination as whether it is a friendly and acceptable environment or it is a tension environment, and we need to respond appropriately. When our boys, if we're supposed to protect and provide for our women and children, then they should feel safe around us.
Yeah,
and they see us, then they should feel as though and know that they are protected, that they are in the presence of decency, order, and concern. If our women and children see this concept initially as to the slouchiness, the sagging, the thuggish look that we have, then they will instinctively go into protection, retreat, and go on guard of defense. And so if they're not comfortable with us, then it's definitely going to be more difficult,
hard,
difficult to be harder to really get where we need to be. And so when they're in our presence, we need to have a symbol and sign of order and decency and understanding that we understand our role and how we're communicating our mindset as to our appearance. And your dress does depict your mindset. If you work for a restaurant and they actually ask you to wear a uniform, you're a professional, you wear a uniform, then it depicts and communicates to others your stance, your standing in your mind. So if I see an airplane pilot in a uniform, then I know his mindset.
And if his uniform is slouchy, is one button on, off, and hat all turned to the side, I mean, you gonna get on that plane?
So yeah, those are important messages that we need to send, that they may practice manhood. You don't wait until you get to the appropriate stage and then try to engage in manhood, you start practicing the attributes. As an athlete, practice his skill, his craft in athletics before the performance. Then we should practice our characteristics and attributes, concepts, responsibility of manhood.
And I'm glad you said that, because that kind of hits home, because as a young man, you have to instill these things in these younger guys coming up, like you said, to practice that. Just like an athlete practices his skills. So if you wait until you 18 and you've been slouchy, a thug, not caring and stuff like that, then you wake up and say, oh, I'm grown. I mean, how do you expect people to take you as though you're grown if you're not acting or practicing like that, what you should be? And I want to ask you, do you see a youth summit in the future? Is that something that you think can be done, that we can bring a lot of these young men together and just have a conversation with them?
Yeah, well, yeah, we have, and I believe it's possible for us to do it on a larger scale. One of the things that's been allowed over the last 3 years, that there is a conference of men, and particularly ecclesiastical leaders, and some of our boys don't have exposure. I took some boys just the other day to Little Rock, and for the first time they'd gone to Little Rock, had actually seen for the first time, these boys from a small community, a street actually named after Dr. Martin Luther King.
Wow.
That was their first time, and they were amazed at looking at that sign. So sometimes the exposure, the experiences make a difference. But over the last several years, we've been able to take maybe somewhere between 50 to 80 boys on a trip to have a conference. So it's a few hours, and it has really been impactful, significant to them. And you're right, to be able to do it on that scale with more men being involved will actually have a greater impact, that we can address the issues of disparities and dissensions and disorder, particularly in our community.
Now, how, if someone was trying to get their son involved in the program, how would they get in contact with you to do that?
Okay, you can call the office, our church office, and that number is 870-534-2227. That's Shiloh Baptist Church office there. And my personal number is 870-718-5346. Either 870-534-2227 or 870-718-5346. And there are some schools we have a presence at, and we're working on getting more active in some of the other schools, so we'll be able to tell you which schools our Gentlemen's Club at. Now, some schools may have a Gentlemen's Club with teachers working with boys and using their personal time, but that may not be particularly the one that we have engaged.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on, Reverend Smith, and talking to us about the Gentlemen's Club. And I just want to let you know you have just been placed on alert.
Thanks.
All right.